In this video, we are going to look at relations and functions. A relation is an ordered pair. It means that we have two numbers that are related to each other. So here in this ordered pair, at the x value of 4, we get the y value of 2. Or at the x value of -1, we get the y value of 5. These are a relation. Whatever the function is, for this one, whenever we have 4, we're going to get 2. Or whenever we have -1, we're going to get 5. When we have multiple ordered pairs, we can use this to create things such as a table of ordered pairs, or a graph, or a mapping diagram. So let's take a look at each one of these terms that I just used, table, graph, and mapping diagram, to get started. Here we see three relations, or three ordered pairs. We have 1, 3, we have 2, 4, and we have 3, 5. Our first goal is to create a table. In a table, it looks like a divided up rectangle, where one column is your x values, and your other column is your y values. To create the table, we take our ordered pairs, our relations, and put them into the table for corresponding x and y values. When x was 1, our y value was 3, as we see here. When x was 2, our y value was 4, as we see in this ordered pair. And lastly, when x is 3, our y value was 5, as we see in this ordered pair. So there is our table. All we do is we take our ordered pairs and we reorganize them into a rectangle that has been divided up into an x column and a y column, and make sure that whatever x value we have from our ordered pair, that it matches up with the y value from the same ordered pair. So let's take this and move it a little bit. Oops, we lost a piece. That's okay. I'll just get rid of those. They're not that important. And now we want to find a mapping diagram, or create, I should say, a mapping diagram. A mapping diagram is similar to a table, except we are dealing with ovals. We have one oval that is our x values, and one oval that is our y values. So we'll put all of our x values into our x oval, so 1, 2, and 3. We'll put all of our y values into our y oval, so 3, 4, and 5. And then we show the relationships between the x and their corresponding y values with arrows. 1 corresponded to 3, 2 corresponded to 4, and 3 corresponded to 5. This would be our mapping diagram. Okay. Now, one thing to note about a mapping diagram is you could technically have your x value going to a y value and a different x value going to the same y value. That would mean that it is not a true function, but that's okay. So just know that you don't always have to have what is called one-to-one functions. You could have one x value going to one y value, or one x value going to multiple y values. It just depends on what our coordinates or our relations are. Now, for our last piece, we want to create a graph. To graph, we're going to need our y-axis and our x-axis. And this is the one that we're probably the most used to. We are just going to take our coordinates and graph them on our graph. So we have the coordinate 1, comma 3, so here is 1 on the x value and 3 on the y value. Sorry, instead of value I should have said axis. We had 1 on the x-axis and 3 on the y-axis, so this was 1, comma 3. Then we have 2, comma 4 over here, and then we have 3, comma 5 all the way over here. And that's a terrible 3, sorry. So we have taken our relation right here of 3 ordered pairs, and we've created a table, a mapping diagram, and a graph. Alright, this brings us into 2 new vocab terms that we should be aware of. These vocab terms are domain and range. Now, the simple definition of domain is all x values in a function. And the simple definition for range is all y values in a function. So the main thing to remember here is domain is your x values, range is your y. A way that you can think to remember that is D comes before R in the alphabet, so X comes before Y. Is it the best way to remember it? Well, probably not, but it works for me. Now, let's put this to use. Let's say we have a bunch of ordered pairs, like we saw earlier. We've got 1, comma 4, 2, comma 7, 3, comma 10, and I wanted to know what my domain and range are, and I'm just going to abbreviate it. D for domain, R for range. The domain, remember, is all of the x values. Well, that would be 1, 2, and 3. So our domain is 1, 2, 3. Our range, R, is all of the y values. That's 4, 7, and 10. So our range is 4, 7, and 10. And that's how we find our domain and our range. We look at our x values, that becomes the domain, and we look at our y values, that becomes our range. Now that we know about relations and domain and range, that can bring us to our final topic for this video, which is functions. So let's take a look at what a function's definition is. So the definition of a function is a relation where each domain value pairs up with exactly one range value. We talked about one-to-one earlier, but let's say I have a mapping diagram from before. Here's my oval. Here's my oval. This is the x's, this is the y's. So over here is our domain, and over here is our range. I'm just going to have 1 and 2, and I'm going to put 3 and 4 over there. A function would mean that the 1 pairs with the 3, and the 2 pairs with the 4. Or we could say the 1 pairs with the 4, and the 2 pairs with the 3. That is okay. But what is not okay and would make it not a function is if, oh, the 1 pairs with the 3 and the 1 pairs with the 4. This domain of 1, this domain value, is now partnering with 2 different ranges. And that is not acceptable in a function. A function has your domain value only partnering up with one of our range values. What is okay would be, oh, 1 partners up with 3, and 2 partners up with 3. That's okay. This would still be a function. because the domains still partner up with one range value. It's just that they both end up having the same value. That's all right. But we cannot have one domain with two different range values. That means it is not a function. So let's take a look at an example I'm about to draw, and we'll decide if it is a function or not. So here we have a mapping diagram. Our domain is made up of 7, 9, 12, and 15, and our range is made up of -7, -1, and 0. As we are looking on what domain values pair up with the range, we should notice that 7 has a little bit of a problem. Not only does 7 partner up with 0, it also partners up with -1. This domain has two different range values. That means this is not a function. For it to be a function, each domain has to have only one partner in the range column. The 7 has two. Therefore, it is not a function. So there you have it. We've talked about relations, how they are ordered pairs, how we can organize our ordered pairs into tables, mapping diagrams, and graphs. We talked about domain and ranges, how domains are the x values in a relation, range is the y values in a relation. And then we talked about functions and how a function is when every domain has a unique partner in the range column, and only one partner. You cannot have the domain having two partners in the range column, because then that means it is not a function. Hope you found this video useful, and good luck.